All right, so we are live today after a long time. So, today I want to show you how to easily understand retrograde planets. Okay, and the easiest way to understand retrograde planets is simply using the analogy of Vastu. This is how I actually understood it. So much easier than any other explanation out there. Think of retrograde planets as extension in a plot, right? So if you have like let's say a rectangular, you know, plot, extension can simply be this part coming out. Okay? That is an extension of this plot. If it's cut off, then there would be like a actual gap. That becomes the cut in a plot. So extension, so if this is a plot, this is like part of the extension just protruding out. What happens with an extension? Extension becomes wasteful energy most of the time. Actually, all the time. This is why you have to balance that out. So think of retrograde planets as having too much extension in their realm. And if you want to even understand combust planets, think of combust as cut off in the plots. There's lack of the energy. Okay. So retrograde simply represents the energy which is so much that it's wasted. It's not recognized as useful, or it's not being used properly. That's what happens. Retrograde planets energy is not being used properly because there's too much of it. And the individual who has this energy does not know how to take care of all this extra energy that they have. Because we can easily take care of things when they're in this symmetrical border and line. But when something is extended, it is waste. Okay, so that's the easiest way you'll ever learn retrograde planets. Now, one thing we do know about retrograde planets, okay, is that in the sky, the planet feels like it's moving backwards, and yet our motion, our lives are moving forward. And so what happens is, because we use the analysis of as above, so below, anybody, and I'm not talking about retrograde planets in transit, I'm talking about people who have retrograde planets in their chart. What happens is you will move forward in your life, and you always, time to time, forget to take the right energy of the planet which is retrograde, and then you have to go back again and then reaccumulate the rest of the energy and bring it back. That's what the retrograde planet is. So, for example, the way to look at this is, let's say, for example, Saturn. Whenever you look at any planet, look at their significance. Which house is their significator of? Okay. And which placements in the horoscope are they exalted or debilitated? So, for example, if you look at Saturn, Saturn is the significance of our karma, the action. It represents duty, commitment, and sacrifice. Then Saturn is the significator of eighth house, death, rebirth, transformation. And Saturn becomes the significator of the 12th house, losses, expenses, foreign journeys, sleep. And then Saturn is naturally exalted in the sign of Libra and debilitated in the sign of Aries. So if you just look at these things, the first thing you see, because Saturn is retrograde, this person who has this Saturn, they're not able to fully accumulate all that energy and start working with it. They'll take a little bit of what is supposed to be taken, which was before retrograde, and they're still working with it. And what happens is, because it's retrograde, because there's an extension in your chart, in your birth chart, this person will overly sacrifice themselves for other people, and then they will be upset and sad that my sacrifice is not recognized. That's one of the first thing that you will see with these people. They will sacrifice. They'll think that, oh my God, I can keep doing more and more for this particular thing, for this particular individual, or even for my work. And then they're not recognized, or the person who is witnessing them working will feel like, okay, you are doing too much of wastage extra work. This is not something I have expected of you. Yeah, thank you for doing it, but it was not supposed to be done. So now, instead of gaining something from that hard work, they now are made to feel lack of something within themselves. So they feel like life is a waste. No matter how much I sacrifice, I don't get anything. And everybody just doesn't take a note of my work. The reason being, you're not recognizing what limit to bring your sacrifice into play and how much of work that needs to be done. And because Saturn is the significator of karma, the action, and it's retrograde, a person may actually do a little bit of work and they'll think like, I have done so much of work. Yes. While the world is recognizing, no, you're not doing exactly the work that is supposed to be done. Then let's look at the significance. 8th house. Right? 8th house is many things: death, rebirth, transformation, occult, hidden knowledge, fear, psychology, research. So first thing that Saturn does, remember, there's access with retrograde. There's tremendous amount of fear for death. They'll create their own fantasies and their own fear of what's going to happen to them when they die. So they're very fearful of anybody who's getting really sick in front of them, or them having some near death type experience. Where somebody who may not have Saturn retrograde has wisdom in life, they'll be like, I'm okay, I'm great. I would love to go on to the other side. And then, because 8th house also represents research, research is done to the extreme point, but also it's wasteful research. Also, it becomes wasteful, and they don't know how to control. Well, see, Saturn is about control. Why? Because it's boundaries. Boundaries always control things. So Saturn's ring represents the boundary. When it's retrograde, Saturn thinks it does not have boundaries. So it does not know when to stop. Then Saturn is exalted in Libra. Libra is what? Air. Vayu. Right? So you will see, because Saturn is also a significator of air. Okay. Vata. Retrograde Saturn will give people like what do you call asthma. Will give them breathing issues, especially at night. What do you call that? There's a particular term. I believe it's called sleep apnea. Am I correct? So what happens is, Saturn, because it's retrograde and it's too much of that energy, and Saturn signifies the 12th house, is the significator of the 12th house of sleep. So the sleep is disturbed because of that too much air in the head. Like you'll say, even if it's not sleep apnea, they will be thinking too much about work. And that will give them the lack of sleep. Saturn is debilitated in Aries. So naturally, retrograde Saturn brings lethargicness to the person. You will see such people will actually desire to sleep in the middle of the day. Now, let's say, for example, you look at Jupiter. Jupiter is retrograde. Same thing. Jupiter is now the most potent of the grahas, the planets, right? Jupiter is significator of the second house, fifth house, ninth house, 11th house. Money, wealth, family, children, teachers, gurus, learning, desires, organizations. Then Jupiter is exalted in the sign of Cancer, debilitated in the sign of Capricorn, right? So now if Jupiter is, retrograde, there's too much extension. So first, we had too much extension in the west direction. And you will see when people have retrograde planets, whatever planet is retrograde, you watch their home, that particular area of the home that they move into or they buy, they're renting, will have extension in that area. And this is one of the ways to fix it. Once you see that, okay, I have retrograde Jupiter, your northeast direction may actually be extended. So now what happens is Jupiter is showing intelligence. And what happens is Jupiter, because of its retrogression, one has a wasteful energy. They will waste learning wisdom that may not be useful for their consciousness. They may think they're supposed to follow this, but it may not be taking them to the right direction. They will give too much devotion, too much of themselves towards a teacher or mentor that would not be right for them. Okay. And I'm not saying this is in all the cases, but these are learning experiences of a retrograde Jupiter. Retrograde Jupiter naturally will take a person away from their near and dear ones. Why? Because it's a significator of the second house. They'll have a hard time managing and handling money. They will not know where to properly invest the money. Because it's the significator of the fifth, children come with delay. And one may not be prepared to raise children or how to raise children. Okay. At the same time, the network circles that they make, the friendships that they make, most of the time, they're not there when they need those people the most. Because the retrograde Jupiter, who has this extension of energy, will attract people who are more useless for them and not useful for them. And because Jupiter represents teaching, Jupiter represents learning, not more so learning, but teaching. They will give themselves towards teaching something without expecting anything in return when they should. And of course, retrograde Jupiter, because it's the significator of the second house of food intake, represents the fatty molecules within our body. One may not know what to eat and how to control the eating where their weight can increase. Then Jupiter is exalted in Cancer. They will overly nourish people, smothering them while they're not supposed to. When a child gets to a certain age, like for example, my own daughters, they're almost going to be teenagers. And they can now see, like, when dad wants to, hug them and hold them, like, oh, dad, get away, please. Okay, dad, go work, go upstairs, work. It's literally, I have like almost teenage kids now who don't want me to like hold them like I used to. They're like, especially my eldest daughter. Like, oh, dad, please stop. I'm not a baby. So that is one of the things of like a retrograde Jupiter, where you try to give them too much of that nourishment because it's exalted in Cancer of nourishment. And then Jupiter is debilitated in the sign of Capricorn. Okay. That means at work, okay, at work, they will try to guide people overly infatuating their place in their workplace. Like people think, wow, you're not a manager. You're not a, some supervisor, just a colleague. Why are you acting like you're need to guide us? And especially Jupiter, because it's debilitated in Capricorn. Okay. Their intelligence, because it's excessive, again, it's retrograde, it's extension. They will use their intelligence in the wrong places at work. And they'll have to then overly be corrected before they learn those lessons. And remember, this isn't about like being rich, poor, or famous, because some of you may even give me chart. Well, what about this celebrity? They have retrograde this and they're this. Listen, there are almost 8 billion people in this world. Out of that, at least 3 billion people are adults. And you're trying to give me an example of 0.00001% exception. That's not how astrology works. We're looking at daily, regular people like you and I. Okay, we're not one of those special big celebrities, those unusual yogas that are occurring, that perfect chance of dashas and yogas and timing and transit that are coming in for those people. So let's not go there. Then you got to also understand, just like Saturn is debilitated in the sign of Aries, one thing you also have to see is the directional strength, right? Jupiter's directional strength is in the ascendant, first house, just like Saturn's directional strength is in the seventh house. So, retrograde Saturn, because its directional strength is in the seventh house, they become directional less when it comes to marriage. They think they're doing something right while their sacrifice is going towards making the spouse mad. Just like that, retrograde Jupiter, because its Digbal or directional strength is in the Lagna of the intelligence, okay? They will think that they're doing everything properly and right. And that would be mismanaging their own health. Okay. Then you look at Mars, retrograde Mars. Mars is naturally the significator of third and sixth house. Third house of siblings, naturally is the significator of siblings, courage, competition, health. Okay, this is why Mars is also the Diya Karka, the significator of the body. And Mars is exalted in the 10th house, debilitated in the 4th house. Okay. And so, first thing we see is that when Mars is retrograde, there, first of all, is too much wastage of energy in life. There's too much of spending energy on wasteful things. If somebody should be doing yoga while their body is requiring them to do yoga, they will be doing Pilates. They will be doing mixed martial arts. Mars, because of its significance of third and sixth house, irrationally picking fights, getting angry at the things that nobody has to get angry over. You know, those people who get into fights at a bar, people who get fight at baseball games, like for example, you'll see in the last week or two in US. I mean, people are going viral for literally almost killing each other over a sport. This is the intelligence. And so here Mars is becoming competitive and wanting to fight over nonsensical things because its energy is extended, like the Vastu. And there's extra selfishness that comes in with retrograde Mars. It's a rebel without a cause. Retrograde Mars. One will, one may even, and retrograde Mars can either sacrifice everything for their sibling when they get nothing in return. They go too far for their siblings. Like, putting themselves into legal trouble for their siblings or friends. That's not intelligent, smart energy. Okay. Then you have Venus. Venus is retrograde. Venus is naturally exalted in the 12th house, debilitated in the 6th house in Virgo. Venus is the significator of the 7th house of marriage, gets directional strength in the 4th house. So here, Venus, when it's retrograde, there's overdoing of devotion towards certain thing while ignoring the responsibility of the home. Because Venus is the significator of the 7th house of unionship and marriage. So, of course, those things can get delayed. And at the same time, its directional strength is in the 4th house. This is why they've always said a female has the nesting power. She's the one who controls the home. This is why when you see in the movies, okay, whenever a new bride comes in the home, the mother of the actor would give her all the keys. Now she controls the home. So we're not talking about moon, because moon's not retrograde, it's Venus. So when Venus is there, their devotion goes towards extreme, towards something, and the other things get ignored, which is marriage and home. For example, somebody with retrograde Venus, whether it's a male or female, doesn't matter. They're a devotee of, let's say, Krishna. They're a devotee of Saraswati. There's so much devotion that they're ignoring their marriage. They're ignoring the raising of the children. They're ignoring when to cook something, when to, do something for the home or for the work. Or one get overly obsessed with somebody and infatuated with somebody. And they don't know how to control that energy. Because here now, Venus, there's too much energy of Venus. Like retrograde Venus, they'll fall in love with everybody around them. If the retrograde Venus person met 5 similarly aligned people in one day, they'll feel like they want to marry all the 5 people. They'll feel like, wow, this is amazing. I'm in love with this one, and all of them. Because there's no that concrete commitment that, okay, this is the person. Yes, you guys are all good and beautiful, but that's the person. But no, here, because Venus is retrograde, there's too much of extension of Venus's energy. They're trying to just collect as much as they can without knowing that, no, you're supposed to just have that one energy with yourself. And there's this OCD with retrograde Venus that comes in. OCD towards self criticism, self beauty, OCD with money, cash money, even. Okay. And it's hard for them to forget those past feelings of their past love. It is always reigniting. They're always looking back at the past, because remember, Venus is retrograde, right? So you're moving forward and Venus is right there, and you keep on looking back at your past loves. You're always constantly thinking, oh man, what if I was with this person? I wonder how that would have been like. And throughout, you are, because remember, Venus is exalted in the 12th house of sleep as well. Just like Saturn is a significator of the 12th house. So in the sleep, the retrograde Venus is, again, constantly thinking of how life would be with this person or that person, without concentrating on the person that they have right now. And because of the fact, Venus gets debilitated in the 6th house, they become very self-critical of their own self. Even if a person is beautiful, they will, go to the extreme of wanting to feel beautiful. They'll do too much of plastic surgery, too much of makeup, too much of something to preserve what is already there, but they can't recognize it because it's overly extended energy of Vastu. Again, because I know new people are joining here, but like I said, retrograde energy is relating to Vastu. Is the extension. Extension becomes a wasteful of a certain direction and its energy. Mercury, we all know about Mercury. It's the karaka of communication, studies, education, logic, okay? Decision making, discernment. Mercury is exalted in the sixth house of logic, work, accounting, debilitated in the 12th house of intuitive things, sleep, meditation. So here you will see um, there's extensive learning that occurs, which may not bear fruits. Like you will see with the retrograde Mercury people, they will even go all the way up to getting a PhD. But them, their salary of what they have done as a PhD person versus somebody, let's say, who's selling cars with a high school diploma, it's not going to make sense. And they will not recognize it. They'll be like, that's okay. And that's okay too. But the thing is, you do not get your worth because, like in India, there's a term like one is becoming a kida, one is becoming an insect. They become insect, bookworm, learning, but then the execution of that learning becomes difficult. Or if they execute, the results of those execution are not bearing fruits because they're executing those things in a places where the maximum results are not what they're thinking. For example, let's say you're a plumber, okay? You did your plumbing studies. You have now a professional plumber license. And you're hoping that I should be able to make $2 million a year as a plumber. When being a plumber, the max you can earn, even if you're in Beverly Hills, is probably 150 to 180,000 a year. Because there's so many plumbers, and there's a set market level of what the price is for fixing your toilet or fixing your sink. But a retrograde Mercury will have these expectations, and that's why they're going into it. And then it upsets them. They will do keeping accounts of too many useless things. Retrograde Mercury keeps accounts of things that you will not even ever use. Like, for example, some people will keep track of train schedules because they love train, but they're keeping schedule it for some reason. And there's no use for it. It's just that it's their hobby. Or they're keeping accounts of all the small things that somebody said to them, and they remember that. And then they go back and then they kind of speak that, oh, I remember what you said this. Now I'm going to do this. They keep too much of these business calculations going with every small thing. And especially, of course, we know with the communication, there's this repetitiveness that one would have to take care of with their communication. And even with education, like I said, they will try to learn something which will not be the most fruitful for what they're hoping. Okay. So now what we do is, like, if we can take any planet, like I said, and we can put it in whatever house. Okay. So, like, for example, please, who's it? Alpana, Jupiter retrograde sixth house for Taurus ascendant. So for Taurus ascendant, Jupiter is in the sixth house, which is going to be Libra. Okay. And here Jupiter is retrograde. First of all, this person will not know when to stop taking debts. And they will take on debts, especially on behalf of partnership and marriage. You will see, because Libra sign is there, when this person gets married, they're going to borrow money. And they will not understand how much to borrow, but they'll borrow so much that they will not have the ability to recognize that this is a little too much. Because Jupiter can represent massive big debts. And this person, actually, this becomes part of the pending karma that you'll actually have to take on debts on behalf of your spouse. But it's retrograde. You will not, it's extension of your Jupiter. You won't recognize that, you know what, this much is enough because that's all I can pay off. But if you don't watch, it can extend to a huge amount. Saturn, who's this Priyanka Bist? Saturn retrograde in the 10th house for Ardra ascendant. Okay, so you're Gemini ascendant. Okay, so Saturn is in Pisces. Yeah, I mean, you're gonna devote yourself to you're gonna overly extend your work, especially in a foreign place, foreign lands. But you're going to be tiring yourself, especially with Saturn in Pisces. You will see your amount of work that you will do will pain your feet, and the results do not come in until Saturn matures. So you have to be very careful of what type of work you do, because it'll disturb your sleep and will bring pain in the feet. Maybe you do work standing up and you're thinking that, okay, I'm doing all this great extensive work, and you will not be appreciated for it because you're not recognizing that Saturn. Okay. So when you work way too much, then it disturbs your sleep. And it is going to be taking place in foreign lands. Um, boy, this is so. Let's see, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. So who's this? LSJ79. Mercury's retrograde in Pushya in the 10th house. You will over nurture. Okay, you will over nurture your bosses, and you will over communicate, and you will try to guide them thinking that you're impressing them, and they will be not liking that, because no boss wants to be seen that their employees trying to guide them, because Mercury is in Pushya, Brahaspati, the guide. Mercury's retrograde, that means Mercury's energy is extended. You will feel like, oh, you know what, maybe I can teach this to my boss, because look, this there's a you will what happens here. You will try to show some flaw in the counting. You will try to show some flaw in work, and you will try to start preaching them. That's going to backfire. So control of how you communicate with the bosses, because you will feel like you're nurturing them, and they'll feel like you're trying to they'll feel like you're dictating them. You're becoming an overly zealous, teacher who thinks that they know better than that you know better than them. Um, so 8, 9, and Mercury retrograde. So what is it? Bhavapi, Mercury retrograde in the 9,000 Capricorn. Okay. So look at this way. Capricorn is what? Career, your work. 9th house represents the management. Okay. Mercury is there and is for Taurus ascendant. So Mercury naturally will rule the 2nd and 5th house. So here it shows you get caught up in too much of paperwork. You do overpay. You always get caught up in too much of paperwork of either HR or too much administrative paperwork of dealing with, even depending upon what your career is. If it's a corporate career, you'll overdo the paperworks. You will even lose some important paperworks because you're too busy calculating something else. And of course, one can even um, attain wrong career advice in their own life. Or one may even try to give advice that can backfire in terms of career of an individual. So Wait. Libra 1. So 8 and then 2 Mars. So Neo has Mars retrograde in the 6,000 Libra sign. Yeah, so Libra again with Taurus becomes a pending karma. Mars is naturally becomes the seventh lord within the Libra. So one thing we see because of this retrograde energy, you will become too obsessive with relationships and marriage to a point where you would become very jealous or controlling because you don't want to lose that thing. Because sixth house is 12 from the seventh house. Here, Mars's energy is extended. So Mars becomes very unbalanced to lose somebody in their life. And usually you will see that your marriage will take place far away from your home or far away from your near and dear ones. Because again, the energy of Mars is the 12th lord and the 7th lord is 6th from itself. And you will pick people in haste, meaning you will pick people in relationship without judging them, with due process and due time. And later, then you will regret the decision that you made in a relationship. So whenever you try to go into a relationship, you have to take your time. And I know Mars is not going to allow you that because it's Mars and it's retrograde in Libra. Okay. So so lovely Sahan Snaha. How does it affect Aquarius ascendant with Sun in Pisces and my Jupiter in Leo? Okay, so you have a Parivartan Yoga. I mean, they're not retrograde, right? But I mean, just look at it this way. For an Aquarius ascendant, the second house will be Pisces. Your seventh lord is there. You're going to spend too much money on your spouse. And spouse will control your bank account. Simple. You will sacrifice yourself. You don't say, "Oh, you want to buy this? Okay, I'll let's buy this." You will try to like smother them with too many gifts sometimes on their birthday. Because Pisces is what? Original 12th house of expenses. You will spend money on buying foreign trips and foreign things for your spouse. It's a great thing, but again, there is going to be that wastage of it. And then second lord goes into the seventh. So on the other hand, you get regal status because of your spouse, but also spouse controls the money as well. So you spend money, more money on them of your own, but they also control the money as well. Simple. So Alex Wang, Shani is retrograde in Saravan Nakshatra in the third bhava. So what happens is you not listening. What's going to happen with this Saturn, especially in Saravan, you won't listen to some of the most important advices regarding your career. And you will miss something so important and you can make a mistake against the advices of your advisors. And these advice can actually come through either neighbors, friends, okay, or siblings. And you may not listen to it. And especially with Saturn in Saravan Nakshatra, usually it shows one can become obsessed with bikes, motorcycles, mopeds, scooters. Okay, so Leah A, Jupiter 4th house retrograde Taurus ascendant. Yeah, see what happens with you. you come out as this big lioness motherly person. Like you'll go to the wits end, even for a stranger, on a small little thing, and they will become very weirded out about those things. And the thing is, you suddenly want to just put all your sacrifice towards children, towards people within the home. And because it's retrograde, you will not know what the limit is towards protecting. Like you become very protective of people within the home with the sign of Leo. And you won't recognize that it's going to be too much to a point of suffocating. Too much of that protective energy comes into play. Okay. So Jason Bourne. Okay, Jason Bourne. Saturn retrograde, Capricorn 8th house in Saturn Dasha. See, yeah, first of all, there's too much fear of what's going to happen with your career. Oh my God, tomorrow I can be fired. Tomorrow I can be laid off. When nothing like that may happen. Because Shani is the Karka of the 8th and it's in Capricorn. But that retrograde energy brings unnecessary fear towards one career. And that's all you think about constantly. One even may lose their sleep because of constantly think about fear of their career reputation when you don't need to. And you will do too much research at work. When you're not supposed to, you will be doing wasteful research at work. Putting your resources into wasteful things for a career. And especially if you're Saturn in Saravana, then you should definitely, listen to advice very carefully of elderly people who are much older. And especially when you meet somebody in secret, it'll be some secretive advice that will be given to you, which will be very important. But because of retrograde Saturn, you can waste that part of the listening on that. All right. So anyway, guys, this was my, little simple lesson on retrograde. And I got to tell you, it has to help you guys. It has to help you guys because it can't get any more simpler than this. Okay. So, and also I will be doing the Saturn, third aspect of Saturn on my KRS vlogs, probably within an hour or two or tomorrow, because the last 2-3 days when I was supposed to do it, I've been like buying and decorating stuff for my Halloween for my home and, going with my daughter and getting this. So that's why I haven't even been able to make so many videos. And I didn't make videos too, if you notice in the last 3 weeks because of Mercury retrograde. This was because I knew this was a very important retrograde. So anyway, I will do those videos of especially Scorpio, understanding Scorpio in your chart and how to activate it properly. Because Scorpio sign, wherever your chart is, you got to understand it represents the energy that transforms. Now, what is being transformed? How is being transformed? And how should you approach that transformation? So that I will discuss on KRS vlogs, which is on my academy, KRSchannel.thinkeffect.com. So we'll do all that in the next couple of days for sure, now that Mercury is direct. All right. So we'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.